Hello and welcome to everyone. The objective of this first season is to tell you a story about SAP from a local process automation of a company to global process automation. This story is about 25 years of evolution of SAP, from the 90s to 2014. During this whole season, I will focus on the why, the what, and the how of the early SAP days. In the first column, I will explain why a company would use SAP. This is the business perspective of the story. In the second column, I will discuss what products SAP proposes to its customers to solve their business automation requirements. And in the last column, I will talk about how these products work, the technology SAP uses to build products that solve business automation requirements. The story starts in the early 90s, and I will use Coca-Cola as an example of a company that wants to automate its business processes. To understand what a company wants to automate in the early 90s, I will make a difference between the geographical scope and the functional scope. In the early 90s, the telecommunication technologies were expensive and not very fast. As a consequence of these limited telecommunication technologies, a company focuses on the automation of only one site, for example, a Coca-Cola site of one single country. On the other hand, from a functional scope perspective, you have to know that SAP in the early 90s already exists for more than 20 years. And as a result of all this experience, SAP was able to propose a very broad functional scope. To automate this local Coca-Cola site, SAP proposes a software that is called R3. R3 as a successor of R2. R3 means release 3. This type of software is called an ERP. ERP stands for Enterprises Resources Planning, or a software that supports a company in managing its resources like products, customers, vendors, employees, money, etc. R3 is comprised of multiple modules that work together in an integrated way. For example, the MM module stands for Materials Management and allows to manage the procurement and inventory processes. Another module is called the SD module. SD stands for Sales and Distribution. This module supports the company in managing its sales, delivery and billing activities. Another module is called the PP module. PP stands for Production Planning. This module supports the company in managing its manufacturing processes. The financial modules are called FI and CO. FI stands for Finance and CO for Controlling. The financial module allows the company to manage its general accounting processes, and Controlling supports the management accounting processes. Another module is called the HR module. HR supports the company in managing human resource processes, for example, hiring a person, making sure the person gets paid, managing the performance feedback activities, etc., etc. All these modules are integrated. It means that they work together when appropriate. For example, in the materials management module, when a purchase document is created, then automatically an additional document is created in the controlling module to notify the financial department that money will be needed. Or for example, when a sales order is posted, automatically the system will incorporate this new request into the production planning. The R3 system is based on, for the 90s, a new IT architecture. This architecture is called the client-server or three-tier architecture. Three-tier means that three different layers will process the information. A first tier is called the UI tier, or user interface tier. This tier will present the software on a PC screen. The second tier is called the application server tier. The business logic will be executed on the application server layer. For example, even though an invoice is not correct, then we will block this invoice for payment. SAP built its own programming language that is called ABAP. ABAP stands for Advanced Business Applications Programming, or it is a software that SAP built especially for business automation. The next layer is the database layer. On that layer, SAP will store the data. As the communication technologies get better and more affordable, the companies start to organize themselves in groups of entities to form a regional group. Coca-Cola starts to organize themselves as a Coca-Cola Europe entity. The aim of this regional organization is to benefit from regional synergies. For example, instead of buying 100 computers per site, the regional organization will buy 1,000 computers and will get a better price for it. Also, the customers are organizing themselves into regional entities to have better purchasing powers. To counterbalance that purchasing power, Coca-Cola is going to create bigger regional sales offices. And the multi-site organization introduces new business challenges, like a distributed workforce that is in contact with the same customer. A central database with all customer interactions is needed to give the best possible service to a customer. From a production perspective, the company is going to specialize the different production sites in producing less types of products, but on a larger scale, and as such produce at a lower cost. From a solutions perspective, we have to ask ourselves the question, can R3 deliver these regional processes, regional synergies? And the answer is yes, but mainly no. Yes, R3 is built for optimizing local processes, but no, R3 does not have regional processes. R3 is very good with its modules that support local processes, but R3 has never been built for supporting those regional processes. That is why SAP will create new components, new systems that will support those regional processes. The component that will support central purchasing processes is called SRM. SRM stands for Supplier Relationship Management. This component will support central sourcing and central contract management. The CRM component stands for Customer Relationship Management. This component supports marketing, sales and service processes across channels like call center, internet, face-to-face interaction, and allows a customer to have one central system of all customer interactions across regions and departments. The last component is called the SCM component, or Supply Chain Management, also formally called APO. The SCM component allows a regional company to have a holistic view on all its logistics activities. Processes like deciding what site will produce which quantity for what customer, or mathematically optimizing the planning that takes into account production resource limitations. From a technological perspective, nothing changes. If you can use an R3 system, you can also use the new components. Now that the telecommunication technologies become mature, the next step of the evolution is the creation of a standard platform of communication. This standard platform of communication is the Internet. The Internet allows SAP to propose processes that evolve across different companies, that involve not only its own companies, but also the company partners, vendors and customers. For example, in the purchasing area, Coca-Cola will ask its provider of plastic bottles to manage the stocks of the Coca-Cola warehouses. Coca-Cola will share its stock information through the internet to the supplier in such a way that he can make sure that the stock will always be available in the Coca-Cola warehouses. On the other hand, from a customer perspective, Coca-Cola will make sure that even when a customer has a big promotion, that he will be delivered. And he will make sure that it gets delivered thanks to the collaboration on future demand. So Coca-Cola will ask his customer to share its forecasted needs through the internet. The internet will mainly have a technological impact. SAP will use the Java programming language for its more complex internet applications and will enhance the ABAP language with HTML capabilities. So, at this time in the story, the solution landscape is comprised of the R3 system with integrated modules to support local processes, and the new components that support regional synergy processes. But these systems are separate, they are not one system. They don't have the same database, they don't share the same user interface, and they need to exchange data between themselves. To create this unified experience across the different systems, SAP is going to build even more components. A question that we can ask ourselves is, how can we combine now analytical information across components? For example, when I'm a purchasing manager, I would like to understand what is the situation, how much is left on a central contract, and who is consuming that central contract. The first information comes out of the SRM component. The second comes out of the MM module. Now, how can we make one analytical report out of these two different informations? SAP is going to propose BW, the BW or the Business Warehouse component. The Business Warehouse component is the central system, the central information of all analytical information across different SAP systems. Another question is, how can I simplify the user interface across the components? For example, when I want to work in the SAP environment, I need to log in to each individual component separately. To simplify this login activity, SAP is going to propose the SAP portal. The SAP portal will allow me to log in once into the portal, and the portal will connect me to the different components. Another question is, how can I transfer information between components? For example, when I'm a purchasing manager, I create a contract, a central contract in the SRM component, and I would like that contract to automatically integrate into the MM module of the R3 system. To realize the transfer of the contract to the R3 system, we have two options. The first option is to create a point-to-point interface, a direct link between the SRM component and the R3 component. A second option is to use a messaging hub. So the SRM component sends the contract to the central hub, messaging hub, and from the messaging hub we go to the R3 system. You can compare this with connecting phones. If you only have two phones, you just make a wire between phone 1 and phone 2. You just interface phone 1 with phone 2. But the moment you have more phones, you cannot do this. There's too many wires going to too many phones. And that is why the telephony system works with a central system, the messaging hub. So the phone connects to the central system, and the central system connects you to the next phone. This central messaging hub is called PIPO, or Process Integration and Process Orchestration. PIPO is the central messaging hub between all SAP components. Another issue that you can have when you have multiple components is that a customer or a vendor or any other object can be present in those different components. And I don't want to manage those objects individually by component. I want to have a system that allows me to centrally create this customer, vendor or any other object, and that this system then distributes this information to the other components. And the system that will allow us to manage these objects in a central way is called the MDG, or the Master Data Governance component. The MDG component allows a company to centrally manage its different master data objects. And now there are so many components that SAP is going to propose another component to manage all the components. And that component is called the Solution Manager. Until now, the story evolved through the reduction of infrastructure costs. And we went from an expensive communication cost, one side, automation of one side, to reasonable communication cost, the organization of a region, to a platform of communication. The next step is not related to an infrastructure cost. The next step is a frustration. Customers are frustrated. SAP is proposing too many different components, too many different capabilities. You have R3, you have SRM, you have CRM, you have SCM, and so many other components. So it's not clear for SAP or for SAP customers anymore what SAP is proposing to the market. To try to solve that, SAP is going to create a new packaging layer. They're going to put together components, and those sum of components will be called solutions. Before I can create solutions, we need to kill the king. R3 needs to be replaced by a component. But not whatever component. We are going to create a central component. So R3 will become the capital. The new name of R3 will be ECC, or Enterprise Central Component. Now that R3 became a component, the central component, ECC, we can regroup components into solutions. For example, we can regroup all technical components like BW, Portal, PI, MDG Solution Manager into one solution that is called NetWeaver. Another solution comprises ECC. And so just by taking ECC together with the NetWeaver solutions, SAP will create a solution that is called ERP. ERP is ECC plus NetWeaver. And then SAP will create a number of specialized solutions. And this is a little bit difficult because the solution will have the same name as its main component. For example, the SRM solution will be comprised of the SRM component, the ECC component, and the NetWeaver components. Another solution is called the CRM solution, and it's the same. So it has its central system. It has main component, the CRM component, together with the capital ECC and the technology component, the NetWeaver components. The same for SCM, the SCM solution, being comprised of the SCM component with the ECC central system and the NetWeaver components. The last solution is the PLM solution, or the Product Lifecycle Management solution. This solution is a bit special because it does not have its own component. There is no PLM component. But this is a solution that has applications and modules that cross different departments, that go across MM, SD, PP, for example. And an example of that is the quality management module. The quality management module is used as well in the procurement of products. When I buy something, I need to have the products within specifications. Or when I sell something, perhaps I need to have a certificate to be able to sell it. Or when I produce goods, these goods have to be following certain specifications. Also within the PLM solutions, we are going to find, for example, project management applications. Or another example is collaborative engineering. All these kind of things are part of the PLM solution. And then to make everything together, the sum of all solutions, that is called the business suite. We are at the end of an important phase in the evolution of SAP. We could characterize that a whole evolution of the 90s until 2000 with one word, and it is globalization. Companies become global. And what is important for those global companies, what the requirements is towards an ERP system is process productivity.